Good morning and welcome to Empowerment Hour here at Calon FM. Well, this is the last Empowerment Hour for 2016. Ben Calder is with me. Good morning.
Good morning, Denise. Nice to see you again.
Again?
Yeah,
I know.
it's great.
I like it. And it's actually 4 years since I started playing with the radio and being a radio show host.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Almost 4 years. And I started on a Tuesday morning and the show was called Feed Me. And my first guest was somebody we both know. And I think if it hadn't been for her, I don't think we'd have been introduced. So that's Margaret Carter.
Bless Margaret.
Yeah.
Who can ever, that's a woman that just brings so many people together. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she was my first guest on my show and she had no hesitation in stepping up. I had no idea what I was doing, She was great. Yeah. So Margaret Carter, everyone over at Patchwork Foods, if you're listening, good morning from myself and from Ben Calder.
Yeah.
So Ben, how are you?
Yeah, fantastic today.
Ready for today?
Yeah. When I woke up, today's a long day and I woke up very early, did my yoga. And by the time I got to the meeting I had at 6:45 this morning, I was already kind of like, come on. And everybody else at the meeting was kind of like, what are you doing? It's just like, because it's Thursday, a week left of work, and then it's the break for Christmas. Yay. So yeah, I'm great this morning.
You're pumped,
yeah.
I think. Yeah. Ready for it. Okay. So, Ben, when I asked you if you'd be happy to be a guest on my show so that I could get to know you better and so could everyone else listening, you said, will there be any tricky questions? Well, there aren't tricky questions, but there's one coming up that's got more of a personal nature to it. So I noticed that you have tattoos.
Uh-huh.
I've seen there's a little one on the side of your face, but it doesn't look like a conventional tattoo.
That's right.
And I've just discovered that you tattoo other people as well, which I didn't know. Yeah. Please tell us more about all of this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long history of me in tattoos, and the kind of main inspiration around it was actually my next eldest brother, who's the middle of the three of us. I'm the youngest, and he spent a lot of time and still does out in Southeast Asia, and he's an artist, and he had a very specific idea about how he wanted tattooing to be, and he couldn't find anybody who could do it, so he taught himself, and then out in Southeast Asia started accumulating aspects of knowledge and lore out there from traditional, what's known as hand poke tattooing. So rather than using a tattoo gun, you have sticks that can be made of anything from bits of wood to I've got some nice silver ones to pieces of crystal to whatever you want really, and you have your needles bound onto them, and then each dot is put in dot by hand. And so it's a very, very different process. So it makes it totally mobile as well.
Right.
And so although those of you listening won't be able to see, but for Denise, this tattoo on my forearm here, this was done in 3 different locations. One of those was in a Timor spirit lodge in Bali. One of them was in a banyan tree in India. And the last one was underneath Pistachrider waterfall over in Powys. And so because we don't need electricity, because it's all traditional hand poke, we can go wherever we want and do whatever we want whenever we want.
Have you done that, or
yes.
has that been done to you?
No, sorry, this one was done by my brother for me. So we designed it between us. And
how come you did it in 3 different locations?
Because there's only so much of it I can take in any one go. Okay. So there's about 12 hours work into that. So yeah. and I find my tolerance is about 3.5-4 hours for a sesh. Yeah. So
and what does it represent?
Well, there's lots of aspects to it. I mean, first of all,
colours.
You'll see there's a big open channel in the middle that runs through my pericardium meridian.
Okay.
And the image in the middle of it is actually the rotational path of Venus as it moves around the sun. Right. So it was about bringing feminine energy into the masculine side of my body and allowing the energy channels through that area to flow and distribute energy differently. So the whole kind of heritage and the practice that my brother and I use, and last year he passed the baton to me, so it were, and taught me. And it's about recognising that actually colour and pattern has a very powerful effect on us, and you'll know it from the clothes you wear, the wallpaper you choose, just the way that you decorate your life. And there are ways of actually changing how your body feels by bringing symbology and colour and pattern and shape and geometry into certain parts of your body. And anybody that's had tattooing will know that there are some parts of a tattoo that can just be excruciatingly painful, and half a centimetre in any direction away from that and it just feels like a stubby finger poking your skin. You hardly notice it. And part of the concept around that is that we store all sorts of information, emotions, energy, trauma, all sorts of things in our tissue, because as the mind contracts, so does the body. So part of what the tattoos do is they actually help to transform areas of the body, and they help to release stuff. And there's a massive culture that's developing now for ladies who've had mastectomies to actually have tattooed bras and other aspects put in to actually reclaim that part of their body. And so it's along those lines that we work. And so every design is unique. Very, very rarely can somebody come to you with a ready design and say, can you tattoo this? Because that's not what we're about. And so it's always a co-creative process between myself and the person who's receiving the tattoo, and we talk and we work out what they want, why they want it, where they want it, and then we design between us. So I'll put designs together and go through drafts with people until they know that when that thing's on them, that they can feel that part of their body changing. And then we can pick a location that will, for them, just feel the most special. And it can be anything from in your own home to a special location, a place out in nature that you like. We can have a ritual space. So it becomes a very, very powerful moment of transformation. We can put intentions into it. So it's almost kind of like doing old school magic. And there's there's some films around that have got kind of similar ideas in them about kind of bringing symbols into the body for healing and magic and so on. And it's a very similar idea. And it's beautiful to work with, and it's such an honor to kind of be able to work with people's skin and have them offer you their skin and to bring something into them that just transforms them.
So what's the most unusual one you've been asked to do?
I don't know that I've had any really unusual ones. They've all, for me, they've all seemed fairly straightforward. I'm just designing a piece for a friend of mine at the moment that is basically like a snake skin strip that goes all the way from their shoulder down to their wrist, down one of their arms. And there are already ideas of actually building a layer to go down the legs to match it. And so some of it's all about kind of building symmetry into the body, or giving you aspects that when you move in certain ways, the tattoos move with you. So they're just this beautiful way of it's just like jewelry in a way. It's accoutrement for the body. We're changing how we are and putting beautiful stuff in so that part of our body feels like we've claimed it and we own it.
I've never wanted a tattoo. Never been into them in any way, shape or form, but my daughter adores them and always has. It's quite interesting. I think she was 11 when she first asked if she could have a tattoo.
Wow.
And I just said no. No, not on an 11-year-old. But it'd be this, no, not spending my money on it. And all I kept saying to her, thinking that she might forget about it, no way, was when you're 18, you can choose.
Sure.
You can choose exactly what you want to do with your body and your money when you're 18. 2 weeks after she was 18 years old, she got her first, I think she had 3 little ones done. And now she has this big stag on her back. Beautiful. And it is lovely on her.
Yes.
And I see it on her. I still wouldn't want one myself.
Sure.
And then I love watching the tattoo fixers as well on the telly.
Sure. Really interesting stuff.
Because the designs that they create are so artistic. I would just love the pictures of the designs because they just sit there and do this sketch and go, what do you think of this? And it's like, oh, you've just drawn that. That's amazing. And you're now going to draw that on someone's skin and colour it in. That's the bit I'd like. I'd like the colouring in bit.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, my mum didn't have her first tattoo until she was 65 and she's got 3 now.
Oh, really?
And I've been lucky enough to take part in all 3 of them.
Wow.
So there are dots on each one of those tattoos that were done by me before.
So do you know what what came first before she actually chose the tattoos? What was it for her?
There was the sensation that part of the body needed something.
Right.
So and she really wanted my brother to be the person that did it, to design for her, so that she could also wear his art.
Right.
Because as an artist, he's a beautiful, beautiful artist. There's some amazing visionary pieces.
Yeah.
And so she wanted something that she could carry. It's almost like having her son with her, right beside
There's
her all
story.
the time. Sure.
Yeah.
And so she just knew where it was going to go, and she had an idea of what it was, and she presented that to Simon and spoke about it, and he just came up with this beautiful pink lotus flower with all these little details that were personal for her, and again this was done in the Timor Spirit Lodge in Bali. We'd actually gone over specially. I took my mum over, and we spent a couple of weeks there, and it was incredible.
Yeah, it's good. I know when my daughter, when she was old in her year, as it were, so her birthday was right at the start of a school year, and so when she actually went to go for her uni exam, she was already well into being 18 uni entrance interviews, and actually she went for an art course, and because of her tattoos and how she could talk about them and the meaning behind them, they said, you don't need to do a foundation, we'll take you straight away.
Beautiful. That's
just
perfect.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting what she chose. She's got the birth dates of both her brothers on her wrist.
Yeah.
And I said, are you going to put any others there? Because it's a bit like a barcode.
Yeah.
And then she's got an anchor on the other arm, and that represents both her grandfathers. So one of whom was in the Navy, and the other one had given her this little rum bottle, which was a porcelain thing that had an anchor on it.
Okay.
So it meant something
Beautiful.
about both of them for her, and so on. And she's got all sorts of other things in places I forget they're there now, because I'm so used to them that it comes as like, I forgot you had that one on the back of your neck or up your arm or down your back or wherever it is, And she just loves them. They are body art to her.
And I always find
they're an
beautiful.
Embellishment, really something for her that she loves to see.
Well, even people who think that they don't want tattoos or don't like tattoos, if you say to them, okay, imagine that you had a bodysuit drawn onto you, what would it look like?
Yeah.
They immediately start to see it.
Yeah.
So, your mind already starts going, well, I'd have that there, and this would be here, and I'd do this. And, it's just like if we were fairy tale creatures and we could have all this colour and shape and pattern and texture into us, we would.
Yeah.
And so some of us go that
and
extra
it's something
step.
that's just come into my mind, and we are going to go on to our first Christmas song when I've said this. I remember when my eldest, who's now 28, was about 3 years old, and he said to me, Mummy, I can't see my own face, can I, when I look at you? And I was like, no, you can't. And I thought, wow, he's 3. And he said, but if I do this, and he would lick the end of his finger and he would draw with his wet finger on his face, I can put patterns on my face. I still can't see them, but I know they're there, and I can feel them. Yeah. And that's the sort of thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think years ago he would have done it. I'm not sure he would now. I don't know. But anyway, each to his own.
Absolutely.
Hey? And when you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're not. So, anything else to say about tattoos?
Just that one of my favourite things to do with them is to make them subtle. So as you mentioned about the one on my face, it's done in silver grey, so it's there to be quiet. And my brother and I are building a piece on my left forearm at the moment that again is all going to be in greys and whites. So it's like subtle lace work. It's there for an enhancement, but it doesn't have to be this big in-your-face statement because a lot of people like myself, they work with people of all ages and all kind of backgrounds, and the tattoos are not there to try and upset or disturb anybody else. They're there for me, and so I don't necessarily need them to be loud and vulgar and strong, so you can have some very subtle, very delicate, very gentle work done, and I think it's about really feeling into your body and what it is you're looking for, and you can create it. As soon as you start to imagine it, you can put it there.
I think from a point of view going back to when I started as a nurse, there was a lot of problems with tattoos and a lot of problems with infection and all sorts of things. I mean, thankfully, that's just, I don't think happens so much these days. I think it's so much more, what's the word? Policed. I've got a better word than that.
And we just understand how to sterilise better and how much easier it is to keep things clean. I mean, even for myself and for my brother, when we're going out, I mean, we kind of call it guerrilla tattooing in a way, because we're just heading out into the hills.
Yeah.
But we know how to be able to keep both the environment and the equipment sterile, so that in the sessions we're doing, there's virtually no risk.
Yeah.
And traditional hand poke as well actually heals much quicker and much easier than standard gun tattoos. So it's actually a much lighter thing, and usually by the time you finish the session, the parts that you started on are already closed up.
It's sorted.
So and there's virtually, I mean, I've seen almost no blood with any of the hand poke tattooing I do. So it's a much nicer piece of work, in my opinion.
I know. I have to say that Evie at one point, a lot of her friends were getting them done, and they wanted to go to specific tattoo artists. I mean, it's become quite a credible thing now,
Absolutely.
which is great, because it actually takes the standard of design up a lot, and it actually makes them worth looking at.
Sure.
This wonderful body art.
It's not much different than wearing a designer's dress.
It's really not. Yeah. And you do pay the money for the top
indeed.
guys.
Yeah.
But it's that having to look after it and wrap it in cling film and protect it and all of that. That's like, it doesn't sound like that's the sort of thing you have to do with the way you do it.
No.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes, don't quite know what else to say about all of that. Is there anywhere anyone can actually go and look this up, this different style of tattooing?
Yeah, so if you just Google for hand poke tattooing, and in Shropshire, we've got two very specific people that do that, who are both trained by my brother. The first is Mama Tat, Mamattat, and that's Rani Twyford. And there's also Silver Moon Tattoos, which is Abby Lewis. So both trained by my brother, both working down near Shrewsbury, and of course myself. So just beautiful work. And you can always look up Simon Calder as well, although he's really only available if you want to pay top dollar or if you want to train to do it. And you have to travel out to Southeast Asia to do it with him.
That sounds all right to me.
It is.
Yes, it sounds like a really cool thing to do. So where are we going from here? So there are many strings to Ben Calder's bow. It's just something else that you do. How do you find the time?
Sometimes I don't know. You have to push the walls of time back and make space for yourself.
Yeah, not think about it as a linear line, I suppose, and just work with the energy, space and consciousness that is available to us. Let's just go back to last week, and we started to talk about all sorts of different techniques that you're doing. So we found out about you becoming a kinesiologist. Talked a little bit about bow and technique, and you mentioned somebody that you wanted to come back to and talk about some more, and that's a chap called Ken Wilber.
Yes.
So tell us about Ken Wilber and why he's so important to you.
If I had to drop it in one line, I'd say that Ken Wilber saved my life.
Cool.
So back in 2011, we kind of glossed a little bit last time about how I had a very difficult situation, and for me, work hit some incredibly difficult points. And at the time, I didn't have a worldview, a perspective that could accommodate what I needed to reconcile the difficulties I was in. And it's often said that you can't resolve a problem at the level that it's created. You have to go a level up. So Ken Wilber is a philosopher and a number of other things who, from the mid-70s up until present day, he's still writing, has been developing this worldview perspective that he's termed as integral. And integral theory and integral practice is just a way of thinking that helps us understand why other people have different views, why there are so many different techniques and styles and systems in the world, and how it's okay that all of them exist. Because it looks at this idea that everything is whole within itself. We have whole atoms, whole molecules, whole cells, whole organisms, but they're all partial to something else. So whole molecules are made up of whole atoms, whole cells are made up of whole molecules, whole organisms are made up of whole cells. And we could look at it from another way, that whole letters make up whole words, make up whole sentences, make whole paragraphs, make whole chapters, make whole books.
Yeah.
And the aspect
libraries.
of it, sure.
Yeah.
And the aspect is in kind of healthy growth that each level transcends but includes its previous level. So this is why if you got rid of atoms, then you wouldn't be able to have molecules and cells. But, so they're all involved within each other and all integral to each other. And it's not that one is better than the other. It's just that they're partial. So it really helped me to understand that every perspective that we have is true and real and complete, but it's still partial. So the way I see the world is absolutely correct, but it's partial. It's my perspective, and that's perfectly okay. How you see the world is absolutely correct and whole, but it's partial. So it allows all of us to have our views and have our way of doing things without saying one thing is better than the other. Now, some things may be more inclusive than other things. So one of my favourite ones to throw out, given the line of work I'm in, is that conventional medicine works very much on what it relies as empirical data.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at the integral model, the kind of empirical data that they're looking at only represents about a quarter of the types of data that we could reconstruct to look at the world, because we can also have phenomenological data, which is our personal experience, our mind. We can also have hermeneutic data, which is about cultures, and we can also have systems theory data, which is about the structure of systems, and none of those are empirical. But they all exist and they're all necessary, but they just disclose different types of information. And so it's understanding how different things fit, what they do, how they represent information in the world, and realizing that they can all exist simultaneously and they all fit. They have a more functional fit when we see the world from an integral perspective.
I like it.
It's complex stuff. I won't kid you. There is a very, very small percentage of the world that is using integral as a system. But for example, it was a key aspect in helping South Africa to dissolve apartheid.
Really?
So Ken Wilber's work, because it was the first system that actually said, well, as an ethnic group, the blacks, they've got a place. As an ethnic group, the coloureds, they've got a place. As an ethnic group, the whites, they've got a place. And it helps actually work out why none of them needed to be superior to the other. So it was a first step. And like every other system, it's got its limitations. And like every other system, there are levels and systems that will evolve above it. But it's actually one of the highest levels of kind of worldview perspective that exists on the planet today. And it's the one that we're going to use to solve so many of the problems that we've had up until now, because it just allows us to accept that other things are valid and possible, and we don't have to chuck the baby out with the bathwater. We can take the good bits of a thing and carry them forward and drop the rest, and that's perfectly okay.
What is it, do you think, this might be a tricky question, I doubt it for you, is it about Western medicine where we don't want to be integral?
It's an easy question, but it's not a nice question to answer.
Yeah.
The bottom line is money. And unfortunately, there is a business model in medicine that very few people see on the surface. And at the ground level, the level that most of us interact with medicine, with nurses, with doctors, that's not where it is.
Yeah.
But in the policy control at the top end of it, it's all about money. And unfortunately as well, if we look at the NHS, for instance, it's been deliberately forced to fail over the last 10, 15 years or so that it can be privatised, so that individuals can make more money. I mean, there's no other way about it. It's got nothing to do, in a way, with the political parties, because they're just the cash cows at the end of the system that are doing what they're told because of money. But fairly as well, integral medicine is in development, and there are now an increasing amount of doctors and GPs who not only recognise and accept but also promote more forms of medicine than they've ever done in their lives. And that's partly because we can understand why things work, and partly because we'll also accept that experiential data is valid. So for a long time it was like, well, that's just the placebo effect, so it has no value. But if somebody can be well from a placebo effect, then as long as that system is showing a fair degree of results and efficiency, then actually it's a reasonable thing to use. And so integral medicine is in development, and integral practices are in development. But like everything else, it takes its time. And we've got to battle with the systems that want to keep control within medicine, and they don't want to give up to the fact that other organisations, other companies, other methods would like to step in, because it will mean a loss in profit.
Yeah, I've always said I was a nurse to start with, and then moved over to alternative practices and things like that I would not want to see hospitals go.
That's right.
Because they have a place.
Absolutely.
And but I have friends who are very alternative,
Yeah.
and somehow they're wrong. Hospitals are completely wrong.
Sure.
Scientists are totally wrong.
Sure, yeah.
I just don't have that view on it at all.
Yeah. You see, you've moved actually into an integral worldview, because the worldview that's recognised to exist prior to integral is known as postmodernistic pluralism.
Okay.
And within that, it kind of has this joke that everybody is equal, everybody deserves a right to be, everybody has a right to express themselves that they want, but you can only do it one way, and that way is the right way. But hierarchies are a bad thing, but we're still the best way, creating another hierarchy. And so, and I have to admit, in my early days in complementary medicine, that I was also quite anti-establishment when it came to medicine. But the thing is, and it was a quite simple statement that I got asked once by my partner when they said to me, so if you're ill, what do I do? And I said, well, if I'm unconscious, you take me to a hospital, and when they get me conscious, I'll tell you what I need. And if I'm conscious, I'll tell you what I need. But, there's a place and a part for everything. Medication, surgery, conventional Western medical model, there is a place for it. But there is also a place for Ayurvedic, traditional Chinese medicine, for shamanic medicine, jungle medicine. There is a place for all of it, because the human race for the last 200,000 years has developed from that place. And the kind of allopathic medicine that we're working with at the moment is 200 years old.
Yeah.
So, we know that actually it's probably going to burn itself through quite quickly because it's trying to form what's known as a dominator hierarchy. It's trying to dissolve everything else because it thinks that that's wrong, and eventually what will happen is we'll have too many sick people to cope with, the system will collapse, wonder where we're seeing that, and then they'll have to have a new model come out of it.
Else. Yeah, cool. Well, Ben and I discovered a mutual liking of a song.
Finally.
So that was Muse and Supermassive Black Hole, and I was thinking about it because I like to watch the Twilight films, and I've been a big Twilight fan with my daughter forever. And there was one year that we queued up for hours to go in, and I think we saw 2 of the old films, and then they weren't playing the new film till after midnight. And this was years ago, because Borders was still down at Cheshire Oaks. Yeah. And we'd been to Borders and got magazines so we could stand in the queue reading a magazine and things like that. It was great. We got home at 3 a.m, feeling fabulous.
Perfectly. And secretly, I'm a Twilight fan too.
Of course you are. Shh. So are you a vampire or a werewolf?
I'd be a vampire, definitely.
You'd be a vampire.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think I would. I like the sparkly skin.
I don't like the idea of coughing up fur balls either.
Smelling like a wet dog, as constantly referred to.
There are definitely some downsides, aren't there?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know about this living forever thing. Quite an interesting concept, but I have to say I loved reading the books. I did find them even more entertaining than the films, but yeah, there's sort of a moment in time for me that I always remember doing things with my daughter who has the tattoos. Back to tattoos. So in this last section of the show, and you're staying with us for the Diet, Health and Fitness show.
Thank you.
And it's the last Diet, Health and Fitness show forever, because in the new year, Lorraine Salisbury is going to be starting her new show, Happy Talk. So yay, big up Lorraine.
Yeah.
Woo. So it's not that long that Lorraine was a guest, first of all on Tracy's show, and then she came as a guest on my show. She's like, I like this. I want to do some more. Have a show. And that was it. She's in. So I'm looking forward to that. So we were just talking about the integral model, and you have a centre in Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
So tell us about your centre.
I mean, it was an interesting place to develop. Again, through my working career in Shrewsbury, there's been two main clinics that I worked in. Health Comes First, I was in for the first 5 years, and Serenity for the second 5 years. And Serenity, towards the end, started to move into kind of more into beauty and micro spa stuff. That's where their market was going, and that was fine. And there was a decreasing number of independent therapists in there. And it just got to a point where I knew that I needed to find somewhere else to be. And I'd been studying the integral model for a couple of years at that point, and I wasn't satisfied with the way that the other options in Shrewsbury were presenting. And I kind of didn't want to be under anybody else's rules anymore. I'd had enough of that, and I thought, well, there are two choices. I either move away and go and do something somewhere else in the world, or I open a place of my own with my own rules and use the integral model as a backdrop for that to try and bring something very different into Shrewsbury and see what we can make from it. And so I thought, well, if the latter fails, I can always do the former afterwards. So, yeah. And you don't know anything until you try. So I decided to do that. And it was interesting. I was meant to go into partnership with a colleague, and when we were quite far along in the process, they decided that that's not what they wanted to do because it didn't look financially like it was going to make them better off soon enough, which is fair enough. And so I kind of teetered on the edge for a moment. It went, okay, I'll still do it. And it's a labour of love. There's no doubt about it. And it's taught me an incredible amount because as a therapist, if something's going wrong with your body, I can probably work it out. As a venue manager, there was a lot to learn. Two very different roles, two very different approaches, and even with all the experience I had, and I thought I understood what it would take to do it. It was a real challenge, and has been a real challenge, and it's getting easier, but it's a big thing to do, and coordinate and manage. We've got over 25 therapists there. We run various classes during the week, so we do yoga, we do Pilates, we do the Qigong, we do fascia ball release stuff, we have mindfulness courses, we do meditation practices, we as you know, we do access bars and access training, so we have a whole gamut of stuff that goes on there, all our shadow workshops and so on, and it's an incredibly complex and an incredibly challenging thing for me, and as we talked about in the first show, having dyslexia and a few other bits and bobs that for me trying to organize and just get all this stuff to work right, it's been a real interesting time, that's for sure, and I'm really grateful for it, and I really love it. Whenever I go into that building, there's just a part of me that just feels at home, and I did from the moment I walked into it in the old schoolhouse, which was
just tell us a little bit about that, because it's not where it used to be.
No, sure. It's funny though. It's the old headmaster's house from Shrewsbury Grammar School, and it used to be on the edge of Bridge Street in Shrewsbury, next to Morris and Company's main offices. And when they wanted to extend their offices in sort of 2005, 2006, the building was on the corner. So as they owned it, they just lifted it up and moved it. So they moved it 100 yards away and slightly around the corner onto St Austin Friars, where we are now, right next to the Sixth Form College, which was the grammar school. So understandably, the headmaster had put himself 100 yards away from the main building so that he can have a bit of peace and quiet when he wasn't in the building itself. And it was rebuilt fantastically, so it's all modern interior, but it
still looks
I think it's 1870 or 1880 was the original building, so it's an old building, but inside it's all mod cons and flash.
Yeah, and you say that the original site was something else. I remember you saying something about Benedictine monks? Is that right?
Yeah, it was St Austin. So it was an Austin friary, and the street we're on is St Austin Friars, and that whole area is St Austin Friars. So and it's 1486, I think, was when the big Battle of Shrewsbury was taking place, and the friary became the main kind of hospital for the battle that happened in Shrewsbury battlefield, and so it's got quite a long history, that piece of land, of spiritual spiritual dedication and healing the sick. So there's something, and you know, helping those who are wounded and injured to recover. So there's something about that I can, you know, for me, I'm quite sensitive to buildings, and I can almost feel that in the ground.
Yeah.
And it's almost like at times I can feel the chanting or the toning of the monks. And you know,
when I was doing that first bars training day that you did, I felt it.
Yeah.
There was definitely an energetic movement of call to prayer. Something was going on.
Yeah.
And it was just like, what am I hearing? And it wasn't as you're hearing me now. It wasn't that. There was this other thing going on. It's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. So there was definitely that sense of, like you say, that a deeper healing somewhere going on, and often music can bring us to that.
Absolutely.
So what's the future for Ben and the Centre? What's
Growth,
2017?
more. We've got some great stuff coming up next year,
Cool.
actually. So aside from the fact that we've got our regular shadow workshops, and we're going to be doing more access bars training there, I arranged a deal this year with Cy Patton, who is the organiser for the British Enduro mountain bike series and the British Downhill mountain bike series. So we're actually sponsoring that as an event next year. So prizes for riders to help with their health and well-being. And we're also going to be at a lot of the events that are within kind of an hour of Shrewsbury. There's only a couple in South Wales and up in Scotland as part of the series, but most of them will be at doing free treatments for the riders to help with their race performance. And we went to a couple of events this year, and we took people who thought they were going to have to drop out because their bodies were so exhausted, and they were winning their categories.
Wow.
So, you know, we can do some amazing stuff for the riders there. And then on this very day today, I'm about to have a meeting with the directors of Climbing the Walls, which is the new purpose-built climbing centre that's coming to Shrewsbury from February, and we're hopefully going to be providing classes and treatment for them, for the climbers, so that people that are looking to keep their body in top condition, deal with any injury or trouble they have from the climbing, or who want to move towards kind of elite and competitive levels, so that we can help them develop
And you know
themselves.
about that. So I'm just thinking, you told us all about your climbing and
Exactly,
things
yeah,
that
sure.
you've done.
Sure,
Yeah.
We're in pole position for it.
Excellent. I love it. And Ben, you're staying with us for the next show, the Diet,
Yeah.
Health and Fitness Show. So for now, just, we'll be back after midday. So stay with us. Stay tuned. Bye for now.